Are you nearing retirement? Wondering what to do? How do you stretch that nest egg out so it'll last you the rest of your life? In this video, we're going to talk with Mike Ruxaka. He is a professional real estate investor who buys distressed notes, and he turned $100,000 into $1 million business. We're going to go into it, how you can use self-directed IRAs to buy distressed notes, catapult your real estate investment empire to true retirement wealth and income. You can find Mike also on YouTube at Note Conference. He talks all about buying distressed notes, but in this conversation, we're going to talk about distressed notes, we're going to talk about real estate, we're going to talk about hard assets, and we're going to talk about using self-directed IRAs for you to invest for your retirement. He actually calls it spend for retirement. You're not going to want to miss this. If you're getting ready for retirement, but you don't know if your nest egg is going to stretch far enough, we've got the solution for you here. Check it out. So Mike, I know you're really excited about helping people to not save for retirement, but spend for retirement or invest for retirement. And you're starting a school group. We've got a group over on the school platform where we invest in real estate and we look for partnerships. I think it's a good marriage of the two groups. But why don't you explain your idea of spend for retirement for that blue collar worker that's saved for his whole life and has 150 or 200 grand. And now he's being, put out to pasture and has to worry about feeding his family.
Sure.
What would you say to that guy?
So, I just turned 65 and I'm being bombarded by advertisements saying, what's the correct amount to save for retirement? Is it $600,000, $800,000? I'm sick of hearing that. I have basically no capital. I do not want to have $600,000 sitting in a bank account giving me 2%. That makes absolutely no sense. I have assets that throw cash at me every month. Whether I'm dead or I'm on vacation, these assets throw cash at me constantly. And that's the point I'm trying to get across.
So what are those kind of assets that you're investing in? You're a note buyer. I'm an asset buyer. Like I buy the actual physical real estate, but you buy the distressed mortgages.
That's one aspect of it. And we can talk about that. It's kind of a little bit more advanced. But the idea is to get together with other people that are investing in real estate and get yourself 10%, 25%, 50% of someone else's rental property and let that property throw cash at you. That's what spending for retirement means, is to get that money deployed and not have this mentality that you need $859,000 so that you can draw 4% out of that a year, and hopefully you'll be dead before you use it all up. I mean, it just is insane.
Doesn't that sound like a miserable plan?
It's like,
wow.
My father used to have my father and I grew up together. My mother passed away when I was a little kid, so it was just me and my dad. And he would we hardly saw each other. And he would put a comic up on the refrigerator every once in a while out of the Sunday paper. And one of them is this old guy coming home from the doctor. And he goes to his wife who's cooking at the stove. How'd you make out at the doctor today? He says, well, I got some good news and I got some bad news. What's the good news? How did that go? The good news is we'll have enough money for me to live out the rest of my life. What's the bad news? I'm going to die in 5 years.
And there won't be anything for you once I'm gone.
What a bad business plan, It's just, yeah. And that's the mentality that we've all grown up with. I mean, that article was in the paper when I was 12 years old. So I've been thinking about that for 53 years, that one article that he put up on the fridge. And that's a bad business plan, saving for retirement.
And unfortunately, that's like the best plan that most people have. That's if they do everything right, they can live on their retirement for a few years before they die. Really, the vast majority of people that would watch this probably won't even get there. Like that avatar that we're talking about where you've saved $100,000 and you're going to retire, you're broke. You don't have any money to live even for a year or two. Like that's a terrible spot. Our system is broken, and that's what they lead people down this path to. And people can never retire comfortably, in my opinion.
Yeah. The number of people that actually use an IRA, adult Americans, is 3%
3% of our population.
of a regular IRA.
Wow.
3% of that 3% use a self-directed IRA. Comes out to under 1 million people have a self-directed IRA.
Wow.
900 and I think Aaron and I worked it out to it comes out to about 900,000 people have a self-directed IRA.
I saw you guys having that conversation inside of Apex. Yeah.
I
Or the
love
flip flop
Apex, man.
flipper.
Dude,
Yeah.
what you're doing is so inspiring for me. All the stuff I've been studying is like for your flip-flop flipper, you guys don't even have to participate. Everybody else is just chatty, and
It's taken a life of its own. Like,
taking a lot. It is. It is
yeah,
a
I mean, I was on there like for a couple hours last night, and I can't keep up with it. I try to go in and be a part of the conversation, and we're getting a little off topic, but it's fun for me. But man, it's happening so quickly. We just started this community literally less than 2 months ago.
Yeah, I know.
And so it's brand new to me. So to see it take a life of its own and see deals getting done
You're like
and
Zuckerberg over there.
meeting people like you that are, doing something that's kind of parallel to what we're doing, but you've got a whole totally different knowledge base, and we could partner up, or we could do educational stuff together. For me, that's what's really, really cool about what school offers.
Oh yeah.
And 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 our whole community is based on, let's do real estate together, right? Like if you're just starting out, let's get your first deal. If you're an experienced guy, let's partner up on something, or let's see the group partner together. And then now you're going to start a group that's going to be more retirement centric. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch you grow. And I fully plan to help you grow as well. Like,
Well, I
I
made sure
think
that
that's what's
McKenna.
so cool about it, right? It's like
Oh
there's
yeah.
so much for everybody, and we're running parallel stuff, but the groups can definitely coexist and do business together. And actually, if we can get your group of people that want to invest in self-directed IRAs investing in the other groups hard assets as lenders or things like that, that's a pretty damn exciting marriage.
It's a
That's pretty
machine.
cool for both groups.
It's a machine.
It's a
I,
machine at that
it's a
point. Yeah.
machine. I mean, it's a rinse and repeat machine.
Yeah.
Um, so what I did was I helped a woman years ago. She was an Indian woman who had a large family, and a lot of them were into high tech stuff. They were software engineers and all that kind of stuff. They made good money working for other companies. But that tech world, these people jump from company to company every 5 years. And
Right.
so, like my mentor, when we were on the calls, anytime a question came up about a self-directed IRA, my guy Peter would say, "Go ask Rasika. He knows." And so I studied the crap out of self-directed IRAs. And this woman calls me up. She says, "Listen, I know my family has, a lot of money, and I want that money to invest in non-performing notes." So I called up at the time my custodian, who was Equity Trust, which I hate now. And I told him, I said,
Don't hold
because
back,
you
Mike.
grow and you learn.
Yeah.
They were the biggest, and I'm like, oh, the biggest. Dick Dessage, he was a cool guy, but then he turned it over to his family members, and that's what sometimes doesn't work. Anyway, I called them up and I said, listen, I need 30 applications for accounts. He's like, I'll overnight them. I'm like, you don't have to, man. We're not going to do something. He goes, we're so excited. That's awesome that you're going to possibly open up 30 accounts for us. And I thought that they were going to fight me tooth and nail. Anyway, I get these nice brochures with the leaflets and everything, and we go to a restaurant, a local restaurant over her in Queens, New York, and she rents out the back room, and we put out these applications at every station. And I went up there and talked about the benefits, the tax benefits. Nothing about notes, nothing about triplexes or anything like that. Just the tax benefits of a self-directed IRA and especially a Roth IRA. Like a Roth, I don't know how much you know about Roths, but you have your seed money, and then any income that comes in after the seed money grows tax free.
Right.
Tax free, not tax deferred. And I brought that point across to these people, and she raised 2 million bucks that night
In one night.
in one sitting,
Wow.
4 o'clock.
Wow.
By 5:30, we had opened up over $2 million worth of accounts, and then I said, "No, just leave it there. Just let them transfer all these dead 401ks that they had accumulated. Equity Trust takes care of that mechanics of getting those old 401ks transferred over and rolled into a self-directed IRA. Roll them into a Roth, and then we can have another meeting." She says, "I'll take it from here. I know what I'm going to say at the next meeting because I watched what you said and I saw how motivated you got them. Now I'm going to offer them X amount of dollars to invest as a return." And yeah, I'm like, this is easy, man. This can be repeated so many times to raise capital. And so my custodian now, who was the spokesman for Equity Trust for years and years, the way he says it, 20 plus years, because he's really done it for 34 years. He doesn't want to date himself. He's a good friend of mine, Edwin Kelly, and he has partnered his clients together, 4 and 5 clients together, to go out and do syndicate real estate deals. One guy has 20 grand, the other guy has 200 grand. Well, why couldn't he get 20% or 10% of the $200,000 deal with his 20 grand and just put these people together? There's one guy who was like 55 or 60 years old. He started partnering up with other people's IRAs to get rentals. The guy's got like 300 in his portfolio, and he did it in like 5 years.
Your friend raises the money, 2 million bucks. Now it's in their self-directed IRA, and I'm assuming, knowing very little about this, the group had a collection of 401ks and maybe some IRAs that they had, and maybe they go from place to place, and so they got multiples of them even,
Yeah,
and they roll them all into one Roth. Is that the general idea? Is
correct.
that, you want to talk about the mechanics real quickly about how that would work for people?
Well, we kind of, I mean, I think we can just dice and slice what we're talking here. So the way an IRA funds get distributed into or contributed into an IRA, whether if you quit, get fired, or get laid off
Right.
from your job, and you've been contributing to a 401k for, let's say, 6 years, you've accumulated 50 grand in there. Now that IRA or that 401k that your previous employer had, is now basically dead. You can't make new contributions to it because now you're either going to go become self-employed or you're going to go work for another employer. There's nothing really that you can do with that 401k
So it
other
just
than
kind of exists out there
it
in the
doesn't do.
ether.
Yeah, it I
Hopefully it
when I
was invested in something that grows, but you
well
really don't have much
a lot
ability
of
to keep funding it.
yeah, a lot of people actually lose what do they call it? Like a portal to when the employer stops contributing on behalf, you lose access to that portal.
Oh,
So a lot of people will just roll that into a money market and go start a new job and go start it, and the money is just dead. And let me tell you, if you're looking to raise capital, there's a lot of capital out there. It's just dead. People are just they're too busy with their job to know and do the research that I've done.
so they
And
end up in a
so
money market account making nothing.
it's the safest. I don't even think you can lose money in a money market if you tried. So that money is just sitting there. When my friend contacted the custodian and said, "Listen, set these people up, and they are sitting on these dead 401ks. And so it's really the new custodian's job. Um, I encourage people to use specialized trust. It's that specialized trust, the custodian's job to contact whoever it was, whether it was T. Rowe Price or whoever was the old custodian for that 401k. They understand that these funds are going to transfer out, which they're very upset about, that they've been just sitting on this idle money, making a commission on money that's not doing anything for
Mm-hmm.
years. And like when I quit my job in 2005, I didn't know what to do with it until 2007. My mentor said, "So, how much do you have in your 401k?" I said, "I got 100 grand in there." He says, "I want that money." I go, "What do you mean?" He says, "I want to sell you some notes, and I'm going to tell you that you should go and look into and read everything you can about a self-directed IRA," which I did. And when I realized that, yes, I actually can get my hands on that 100 grand and keep it at an arm's length transaction and trade my 100 grand for some assets that this guy was selling, I was in heaven because that was the only money I had. And so I did exactly that. And he did actually get that money into his bank account, but he gave me some really awesome notes from PNC. And so that custodian got in touch with my old provider, who I couldn't even tell you who my old provider was back when I had a job. And that money got transferred in. They said, okay, those funds have cleared. It took 30 days. I was jonesing to get my hands on that money because I had found some really good assets to buy with that. I got clear to go. I used a direction of investment form that my custodian provided me. Says that I would like to purchase these assets, and these are mortgage notes. And it was a whole long process, but I've got it all worked out how to get that money to transfer over to the seller of these assets. And these assets were then written into my account, my IRA account, and then I would hire a lawyer to start working these assets by basically just starting foreclosure.
Right.
And then the borrower calls the foreclosure attorney, "Hey, I see you're foreclosing on me. What's going on? Well, you owe this equity trust account $75,000. How do you intend on paying that back?" And they said, "Can you take 5,000 down and 400 a month?" And then my attorney comes back to me and says, "Can you take five down?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I paid five for the note, so I'll take five down and 500 a month for the next 20 years of my IRA." And then that attorney or another attorney goes on to the next one, and I just get these cash flowing streams flowing into my IRA. And so it's the same thing with a rental. When I had my first note that I ever purchased was a Wells Fargo note for a $60,000 balance. I bought the note for 12,500 bucks. The borrower of the money had turned that property. This was a first mortgage, had turned that property into a rental in York, PA, and he was living out in Wyoming, something like that. And his mother would go over there and collect the rent every month. And the borrower told me that he was collecting 250 a month. I said, "Well, I tell you what, you sign that property over to me and you won't have a foreclosure on your record. And you give me two checks of 250 every month and I'll cut you a check for 500 bucks and you'll be done." He says, "I'll be done with that property." I said, "You'll be done." Well, I had no idea why he was so anxious to get rid of this property. I'll tell you that in a minute. So he goes, "Okay, well, I got to tell you, I lied to you about something." I'm like, "What?" He says, "I'm actually getting 425 a month rent instead of 250." I'm like, "Okay." So when I get two checks of 425 into my IRA, send over all the contact information for that tenant and Long story short, the property transfers into my name. I used an attorney to accept that deed in lieu of foreclosure. The deed is now in my name. On the county records, the property shows up as my name, and I get a call from the building department. The building department puts me in touch with the health department. And in the health department, apparently there's been lead-based paint poisoning on
Oh no.
one of the kids that showed up at this property, and I had 3 months to remediate. Well, turns out that the county of York, Pennsylvania, had been chasing this homeowner down, the guy in Wyoming, for 2 years. And he wanted to be done with this lead-based paint thing. And so he dumped that property on me.
Right.
So I get the property remediated. It cost me a couple $100. It was nothing. And because every house in New York was built in the same year, 19, it says every listing says circa 1900. So I'm like,
Yeah.
so I don't think I'm the only guy with lead-based paint in this town.
Right.
And so I called around town. One guy wanted 18 grand to remediate. Another guy's like, you could do that yourself for $300. So I hired somebody and I got it done for $300. Anyway, a year later, this guy from Wyoming calls me up and he says, did you ever get that lead-based paint remediated? I said, oh yeah, I did that they gave me 3 months to do it after the title change. He says, you sure you did it? Because they're extraditing me. I'm like, for what? He says, for the lead-based paint issue. I said, oh. So they're actually dragging him back to PA from Wyoming to be sentenced
Wow.
for because this was a child endangerment issue. And York had the authority because he just turned a blind eye to it.
Wow.
That was my first note deal. My attorney told me to cut bait and run. And
So, so you dealt with the problems, and we say this all the time on everything that I ever talk about. We make our money by solving problems. That's what real estate investors do.
yeah.
This guy's got a $300 problem that he thinks is maybe a $20,000 problem,
Mhm.
and he just turns a blind eye to it, puts his head in the sand like an ostrich,
And stops
gives
paying
you
the
the house,
mortgage
gives you the house plus $800.
and stops paying Wells Fargo.
Yeah, stop
And
paying
so
Wells Fargo,
he's rent skimming. Do you ever hear the term rent skimming?
where he's not paying anybody, but he's collecting the
He's
money, I
taking the
guess.
money and he's
Yeah,
not paying the mortgage. That's rent skimming.
right.
That's illegal in itself. And so he starts paying on that first mortgage. I talked to my mentor about it. He
And
says
this was the first mortgage you bought,
this was a first. The first note I ever bought was a first
and it
from
was $12,000. You bought it for your face amount was 500% more than you bought it for.
yep, 60,000 was the Wells Fargo original balance. So he committed mortgage fraud.
Mike, how many notes did you buy with the original 100 grand? And what was the face amount above the 100? So, I mean, this one note is 500% more than the 12 that you paid. Because this is incredible for someone who wants to retire that has 100 grand, where, let's be honest, you can't retire on 100 grand and you just can't make enough of a return on it. But if you go out and you buy the right kind of assets, like you're talking about, you could turn your 100 grand. It sounds like if they're all 500%, it could turn into $500,000 pretty quick.
It comes down to education. I
Yeah.
mean, I had no idea this business existed.
Nobody does, right?
My buddy told me there's something about this note investing business. And this is back in 2006 when real estate was just buzzing along. My buddy was doing pre-construction condos in Florida where the house would flip 5 times before they ever stuck a shovel in the ground.
I remember those days. We
And
would
so,
contract it the day we heard they were going to break ground, and we'd sell it along the way before they'd finish.
yeah,
And that was one of the ways that I knew that there was a crash coming, is because everybody knew they could do that
everybody.
and make thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars.
We always had a joke said, when your waitress comes up to you and says, "Have you heard about the non-performing note business?" Be
Yeah.
prepared.
For me, when I was buying at the foreclosure sale, and when my dental hygienist showed up and bought a foreclosure and actually made money on it, I looked at my friends and I said, we're in trouble.
I smell
That's
toast.
not supposed to happen, right? Like, this is never supposed to be a safe place for someone to come in and blindly buy and then make 20% in a month. but that's what was happening.
at
So
the
you
auction.
you knew that it was too good to be true, and the end was near.
Yeah,
That was
auctions could
that
be
was
brutal.
2006 as well.
So I had all my buddies, and my one guy, I would get an email about pre-construction. Oh, I'd send that to Eduardo because he was doing that in Florida. I get another note on apartment buildings. Oh, my buddy Rob, he's doing, let me send him that email. I get another email about non-performing note business. Oh, that's my buddy Tony. He was talking about note investing. I had no idea what it was. So 2 months later, my buddy Tony calls me up and he goes, "So what do you think of these calls?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "That email you sent me." I'm like, "What email?" I was probably drinking at the time. I don't even remember forwarding him that email. He said, "Dude, get on these calls, man. It's amazing." And I got on the first call and I'm like, this guy's selling us money at 50 cents on a dollar and it's backed by real estate. This is impossible. So my mentor was buying notes for a nickel from PNC because I know the person who worked at PNC later on, who became a really good friend of mine, who was running the trade desk at PNC. She's like, "Oh yeah, he was paying 5 cents on a dollar for those notes and selling them to you at 50 cents on a dollar." And we were still making money. So he
Wow.
was taking a five and turning it into 50. And then we would take a 50 and turn it into 75. And we were still, and my mentor was banging his shoe on the table saying a 50% return is a good return. But he was making 1,000% return.
And
So
it's all about the knowledge, right?
it's all about the knowledge. And he taught us, and there's people in this business that we were all on the call together. Dave Van Horn is one of them. You might have seen him speak at some of the events around the country. Dave Van Horn from Partners for Payment Relief. We were all on those calls together. I was a machinist. He was a house painter, and
Wow.
he's run like a $2 billion fund now.
Wow.
Uh, Partners for Payment Relief. They're huge. So
So if you're
yeah, it was.
watching this video, Mike, you're just catching us for the first time on YouTube and you've got some pent up money, some dead money we're talking about in a old 401k, or now it's in a money market, or what's the next step? How can someone either get a hold of you to help, or what could they do on their own? I always like to just tell people, I like to say it like this: you could do everything that we're going to talk about and teach all by yourself and on your own, but if you want to get the help, then get a hold of us.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's some links down below on. So you and I both run a couple of investing communities, networks.
Yeah,
What do you call?
communities, networks, that's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
and there are people in these communities that could use your financing. They could use that dead capital to go out and make an investment using part or all of your money, and then you would get back a return, and all of that can be done through your custodian through a self-directed IRA, and make sure that it's papered up correctly with the correct direction of investment form that your custodian will provide for you to you
Hmm.
to make these investments and to get these investments papered up correctly. You want to be protected in the form of a mortgage when you make these type of loan investments. Debt instruments are a fantastic thing because, like you said before, we were talking about, it's a passive investment.
Right.
There's no paintbrush for you to sling around. You don't have to go out and look for the real estate deals. You just roll your 401k into your self-directed IRA, use the direction of investment form to send to the title company or to the attorney to say, "Listen, I want this deal to, they need these funds on such and such a date with a wire transfer or with a cashier's check being made out to whoever's handling the transaction at the title company or your attorney or their attorney." And you keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's it. You go back to, hey, if it's sitting on the beach, go back to sitting on the beach. Wait for your next investment to come along. when that capital comes
and
back.
and get the checks every month in the mailbox while you're waiting,
Or a big fat one at the end, however
or
you
a
want
big
to do it.
or a big fat one at the end. Exactly.
Back to my investor. Let me just give you a little bit sweeter deal and make it a big chunk at the end because he's a contractor. He's not sitting there cutting checks all day.
Right.
And get some deals done because as long as you are well papered up, your first one probably going to be scary, but you want to go with someone who's seasoned. These communities know who has been around the block a few times. You don't want to probably do this with someone as their first deal. You want to go in there with someone with a track record. They can prove to you by going to the county assignments to say, listen, I've taken out 10 mortgages and paid back. Here's 10
Payoffs.
mortgage closings that we've actually paid back
Hmm.
the investor and have some fun with this and get that money working. It's just a shame that the government has pretty much rolled the responsibility of retirement onto the employee. It used to be the employer's job to have a pension and to get the gold watch at the end and get into retirement. But now in 1974, they put it all on the employee. And if you don't want a 401k, like my buddy Boris, who didn't want to take out of his paycheck $100 a month or 200 a month for his retirement because he thought he couldn't afford it. They leave the decision up to the employee, and the government's done a horrible job at informing people on how to retire.
It's amazing how badly they've done, right? And we talked about this earlier. 3% of 3% are self-directed. So only 3% of Americans, I think you said, have IRAs, and then only
IRAs.
3% of that are self-directed.
Correct.
That's
It's 900. I think we worked it out to be like 990,000 people.
that's just so crazy.
And I mean, the IRS has implemented this in 1974, and they did a study that took 20 years to come up with these numbers to really make the government realize that we did a horrible job at informing. I mean,
I,
how much
I
stuff
think
is out there on self-directed IRAs? Come on.
it's not much. And I wonder, you're saying it's a horrible job they did. It almost sounds like they intentionally suppressed the information. Well, I'm a skeptic, right? But how in the world could there be something that's this powerful for the everyday guy that nobody knows about? It seems like it's worse than doing a horrible job. It seems intentional. Like they just don't want to tell people to do this.
Yeah, I mean, let's just do one case study on a Roth IRA. So a Roth is where the money that let's just use one contribution. You're going to roll over your dead 401k. Well, let's use my example. I had $100,000 in my what would be considered a traditional 401k. Now, I rolled that into a traditional IRA, which I regret. Had I known, had I thought about it, at the time of me rolling that $100,000 into that IRA, had I rolled it into a Roth IRA, that would have been a taxable event.
Right.
$100,000 pre-tax money was contributed to my 401k. Actually, I made a lot of that money day trading my 401k, but that's for a whole nother story. I got yelled at for that too. I turned 50 into 100 by day trading. And that's how I avoided the crash in 2000 was I went away on a long weekend and I would always roll it into a money market for the weekend. I would never go over the weekend with funds because you never know how Monday opens up.
Wow.
And so Wednesday afternoon, I rolled everything in, and my wife and I are driving up the New York Turnpike, New York Thruway. I had WOR or Bloomberg radio on, and the Dow was down 800 points, which was just like ridiculous. That has never recovered. That downturn, I looked at the chart, it was like 20 years for that to recover. I just happened to be in a money market because I was
Yeah.
going away on that 4-day weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the whole ride up there, I'm like telling my wife, my friends are getting creamed right now. That didn't recover for years and years and
Yeah.
years. In 2000, 2001. It was a horrible, horrible event. But getting back to the transfer, so had I had the sense, or if I was talking to people like we're talking today, I would have known to roll that 100,000 dead 401k into a Roth IRA, paid the 30,000 in taxes or whatever that taxable event was.
Yep.
Then the 70,000 that's remaining goes into the Roth as seed money,
Yep.
meaning that's the only contribution, let's say, I ever made. And I took that $70,000 and started buying assets with it, whether it's houses, rentals. We're going back to 2007. That's like 17 years ago as of the day of this recording. And 17 years of compound interest on $70,000, even at a normal return, 8 to 10%, would have been a significant amount of money that I could have collected on top of the 70 grand as interest, as
Tax
profit,
free.
tax free. So that now that I am over 59 and a half, I'm 6 years over 59 and a half, which is hard to believe. Um, that money that I take out as a distribution to go out and buy other things like food and gas, I would not have a taxable event at the end of the year
Right.
had it been a Roth. Now I do have a Roth, but I didn't start it until 2005, until 2015. But so I've got two IRAs. My wife has two IRAs. My kids each have one Roth IRA. My son is growing his very nicely. He's 31 years old. But it's knowledge, folks. It's the information or lack of information, which can be devastating or it can be very rewarding.
Right.
But I would get with other like-minded people or people that you want to be like in these communities and check the links below on how to join these communities. Some are free, some have a small fee to get in. And surround yourself with people that are doing stuff that you actually can see yourself doing in the future.
Yeah. This education is priceless. And then networking is probably the most powerful thing that I've done over the last 25 or 26 years. The thing that's consistently made me the most money is not finding great deals, although I love finding great deals and they do make me a lot of money, but it's finding guys like you that I can learn something from, that maybe I could partner with or I could buy something from. It's the networking. This networking is so powerful, guys. And these communities that exist now, they make it really easy for you. I don't want to age us too much, but when I was starting out to join a community like this, it was a physical event at a RIA, was really the only place you could go. And then sometime in the 2000s, the mid 2000s, you started to have in-person events start to pop up, but now it's all online. It's so much easier. The information is literally at your fingertips. And you can join our community, the Flip Flop Flipper. It's free. You can join Mike's community. Again, we'll have the links in the description for all of the different communities. So join them both, join them all. So guys, if you like that conversation, you can join either Mike's community or mine. He's creating one on school. We've got the Flip Flop Flipper community. It's a free community you can join and network. If you want to get more advanced, both Mike and I have ways that you can do that. Ours is called Apex. Mike is just starting a group now. So if you like the video, make sure you hit that thumbs up for us. Come and join us over on the school platform. Join our communities. Let's do some networking together. Let's learn together. Let's do some deals together.
Yeah, Robert, it's been great. I really enjoyed this our first exploratory video here.
I think it was a great conversation, and hopefully we're going to inspire some people who are ready to retire and they're trying to figure out how to make 150 grand last the rest of their life. And guys, there's ways to do it. You just need the knowledge. And so I think that this has been really powerful. Thanks for sitting down with me, Mike, and spending the time.
It was like fun, Robert. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Good talking to you, bud.
Take care.
Hey, guys, thanks for watching that. Give us a like. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to join us over on School, links in the description. God bless.